On the morning of February 23, 1945, during the brutal fighting on Iwo Jima, Corporal Hershel Woody Williams prepared for a mission few men expected to survive. Hidden behind a shallow crater carved into the volcanic landscape, he watched the riflemen assigned to protect him, Corporal Warren Bornholtz and Private First Class Charles Fisher. Their job was simple in theory, but nearly suicidal in practice: keep Williams alive long enough for him to use his flamethrower against Japanese pillboxes that had halted the American advance. Flamethrower operators were among the most vulnerable soldiers on the battlefield, and survival was measured in minutes. Williams, only 21 years old and the youngest of 11 children from rural West Virginia, had become his unit's last surviving flamethrower specialist. Initially rejected by the Marine Corps for being too short, he eventually joined in 1943 and learned the flamethrower from a technical manual. Now, 4 days into the Iwo Jima operation, the responsibility of breaking the Japanese defenses fell squarely on his shoulders. The weapon he carried, the M22 flamethrower, was a heavy, cumbersome machine weighing 68 pounds when fully fueled. It consisted of 2 fuel tanks filled with thickened diesel-gasoline mixture and a central tank of compressed nitrogen. The system could deliver a continuous 8 to 9 second burst of flame up to 40 yards, far outperforming earlier models like the M1 and M1A1, which had been plagued with ignition failures. The M22's cartridge-based ignition system allowed it to function even in humid or wet environments, a crucial improvement for the Pacific Theater. Despite these technical advances, the fundamental tactical problem remained. The operator had to stand fully exposed within short range of enemy fire.
The Japanese defenders on Iwo Jima understood this vulnerability. Inside reinforced steel and concrete pillboxes that resisted artillery, bombs, and tank fire, they identified flamethrower operators as the highest priority targets. Their appearance on the battlefield signaled imminent destruction. Consequently, flamethrower teams suffered catastrophic losses. Some units saw casualty rates above 90%. To protect operators like Williams, American doctrine called for several riflemen to provide covering fire, but on Iwo Jima, even these riflemen were quickly cut down. Bornholtz, Fisher, and 2 other riflemen, whose names remain unknown, accompanied Williams as he moved toward a cluster of 7 pillboxes anchoring the Japanese defensive line. The terrain offered almost no protection. The black sand was too soft for effective foxholes, and the shallow craters left from naval bombardment exposed any Marine who tried to use them for cover. Japanese machine gunners, operating from elevated positions, had a clear view over much of the battlefield. Within the first hour of the approach, 2 members of Williams' covering team were shot. One died instantly. The other crawled back toward American lines, badly wounded. That left Bornholtz and Fisher, just 2 rifles to protect the only man capable of breaking the stalemate. But turning back was not an option. The entire division was pinned down by interlocking fields of machine gun fire coming from the pillboxes ahead. Williams pressed forward. As Bornholtz and Fisher laid down suppressive fire, he sprinted across the open ground toward the first pillbox. When he reached a distance of about 20 yards, he braced himself, triggered the ignition system, and unleashed a torrent of flame into the firing slit. The napalm-based mixture splashed through the narrow opening and spilled across the interior. In a matter of seconds, the machine gun fell silent. Smoke poured out as Japanese defenders, still screaming, succumbed to the inferno.
His fuel spent, Williams retreated to reload. Between these runs, enemy fire intensified. Bornholtz went down. Fisher kept firing. Williams zigzagged across the exposed terrain, narrowly avoiding bullets snapping past him. For the next several hours, he repeated this deadly pattern: refuel, advance alone toward a fortified position, burn out defenders, then sprint back under fire. Over time, his actions systematically dismantled the Japanese stronghold that had withstood days of American assaults. What allowed Williams to succeed where conventional weapons had failed was not just the mechanical workings of the flamethrower, but its psychological impact. Fire has always evoked primal terror and instinctive fear buried deep in human survival mechanisms. Japanese soldiers, hardened by years of war and trained in an ethos of sacrifice, were willing to die in battle, but few could endure the thought of burning to death inside a sealed concrete bunker. Artillery explosions were familiar, bullets were expected. But when a jet of liquid fire entered their pillboxes, the enclosed space amplified the effects. Oxygen burned away, heat climbed instantly, smoke filled every chamber. Fire, unlike shells or bullets, moved around corners, crawled through cracks, and smothered air supplies. American Marines noticed that even the most resolute Japanese soldiers often abandoned well-prepared positions when confronted by flamethrowers. The enemy, who had endured hours of bombardment, might flee within seconds once flames reached their positions, exposing themselves to American rifle fire outside. The psychological effect was so significant that American commanders quickly increased training and deployment of flamethrowers. Yet the high fatality rate among portable operators persisted, driving demand for a safer alternative, the flame tank. The development of flamethrower-equipped Sherman tanks, often called Zippo tanks, marked a turning point. In Hawaii, specialized Navy CB teams converted standard M4A3 Shermans into armored flame platforms, replacing the main gun with a projection system capable of firing napalm over 150 yards. These tanks carried nearly 300 gallons of fuel and could fire repeatedly without exposing their crews. Armored with 3 inches of steel, they were nearly impervious to small arms fire and dramatically more survivable than the portable units. Their arrival on Iwo Jima immediately altered the tactical equation. Positions that had resisted infantry assaults, artillery, and naval gunfire fell rapidly once flame tanks moved forward, clearing networks of pillboxes in minutes.
Yet, on February 23rd, before tanks could reach the area Williams operated in, the success of the 3rd Marine Division hinged entirely on his ability to destroy the pillboxes that blocked the advance toward the airfields. For 4 hours, he moved back and forth across open ground, repeatedly exposing himself to enemy fire, each time returning with flames that emptied one fortification after another. By the time his mission ended, Williams had neutralized the key positions that had stalled the division's progress. The courage and sheer psychological shock effect of his actions played a decisive role in breaking a defensive strongpoint that conventional military power could not overcome. His survival was improbable, the survival of his riflemen even less so. Bornholtz and Fisher, like so many covering riflemen, gave their lives or risked them knowing the odds. Their sacrifice and Williams' exceptional bravery illustrated the grim reality of flamethrower warfare, spectacularly effective, tactically critical, and unimaginably dangerous for those carrying the weapon. Williams would later receive the Medal of Honor for his actions, becoming one of the most recognized Marine flamethrower operators of the Second World War. But the story behind that medal is not just one of individual heroism. It is also a stark study in the psychology of fear, the technological evolution